Well, what you wearing? It doesn't matter. Welcome. Good to see you. This video is me reacting, I should say, to Destin of IGN, our pal, to the Baldur's Gate 3 complaints, worries, anger at a lot of developers who are saying, I believe this isn't fair. They raised the bar. It's too high. They're setting expectations that can't be followed by people because their situation was very rare. And I've been asked by a number of people what I thought about this. It's sitting at 1.3 million views. A lot of people have seen it. I've been aware of it, haven't watched it. I'm about to do that right now with you, my dear friends. I'll tell you what, Last Stand Media sent me this, I don't know what it's called. It's a Zoom thing the mic goes into and whatnot. But it just has my favorite sound effect of all time. So anytime I can find a reason to use it, that's not why they sent it to me. That's one of the side effects, fringe benefits, you see. Here we go. Let's watch this video together as pals do, see what we think.
Baldur's Gate 3 is taking the internet by storm. At its peak, a whopping 800,000 plus concurrent players were playing this weekend, catapulting it to the number 8 most.
I will tell you, I have not played it yet. I'm waiting for PS3, but honestly, I'm going to play Starfield first. I'm more excited for that. And then if I'm still interested in this, if the hype dying down and I'm still interested, I'll give it a play. I hear it's phenomenal, though. Here we go.
Played of all-time spot. The gaming community has sung its praises, and it's incredibly refreshing to play a feature-complete game of this caliber on day one.
Ooh, that's cool, too.
But AAA game developers want you to know that this is Rockstar-level nonsense for scope, that it's foolhardy to set expectations higher, and Baldur's Gate 3 should not be used as a raised standard to RPGs going forward. Why was the first response to defend the current state of AAA gaming as opposed to saying, hey, maybe we can learn a thing or two from Baldur's Gate 3 and make our game better for our customers? This all kicked off way back on July 8th, a lifetime ago by internet standards, I know, when a writer and BAFTA nominee, Xavier Nelson, took to Twitter to express concerns about Baldur's Gate 3, namely that fans would use Baldur's Gate 3 to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. My rebuttal is, why shouldn't customers have raised standards? Taking it a step further, why shouldn't some AAA developers raise their own standards?
Okay, well, let me speak to this briefly. I know, we'll watch the video, but this becomes the real challenge, and this becomes the real wheat from chaff kind of, and I've never made wheat or chaff, but I believe that's the proper analogy. This is separating the wheat from the chaff because it really is about understanding the medium that you're working in. And now, let's be clear. I understand a lot of what Baldur's Gate 3 is claiming to do, and it sounds like they did it, which is very exciting, is there's a lot of handmade content there that only reveals itself as the story unfolds the way you unfold it as the player, who has a great deal of agency over the narrative, which is delightfully awesome. It's what make our hey, everybody, I'm having a stroke. That's the sound you hear when you die. It's what I love about RPGs. It's not the stats and all that shit. It's living an adventure, living a story. So I get that that's a part of it, but there's also just length, graphic fidelity, the cost of the, I don't know, mocap, voice acting, whatever. And honestly, it's like the bar gets raised all the time by all kinds of developers, whether it's Naughty Dog raising graphical fidelity or the way animations work and real-time animation responding to the environment beyond just sort of a canned animation, but some really nice tweening amongst like 20 animations, or in-game design, like Nintendo does something like Tears of the Kingdom, and suddenly, shit, how do you do an open-world game now without having the level of mechanical freedom that Tears gives you? So I get it, but that's the game you're playing, right? And so many developers at the AAA level have doubled, tripled down on production value and visual fidelity, which is often the same thing. And that is only possible to get, unless you just some weird fucking roll of the dice of luck, if you are spending a lot of money, because that shit costs a lot of fucking money. And so, yeah, if you're making an RPG and you are trying to go head to head with where the bar has just been set in regards to fidelity or scope, you either have to, have the means to compete on that field, or you have to do something different and better. Nintendo does it all the time with Sony. So, Nintendo doesn't try to compete with graphic fidelity and production value. But you know what? They've planted their flag solidly in the realm, and always have, of gameplay. And so they're as limited as their imagination and their talent as designers. If you're an RPG company and you're complaining about this game because your game isn't going to look as great, and you can't afford to make it look as great as the Baldur's team did, then guess what? If you really love the medium, that's a gift, because it's the world telling you you're barking up the wrong tree then. Because if you were only going to be able to compete by how much shit you could throw at it based on your ducats, then are you really the right people to be making a great RPG anyway? No, I think tough. That's how it goes. That's life in the NFL, my friends. Let's keep going, Destin.
Are we really going to pretend that consumers shouldn't be a little upset right now and hoping for an
What is this music? I feel like I'm in a spa.
improvement in the industry going forward? Rockstar just announced a $50 remake, conversion of the original Red Dead Redemption for the PlayStation 4 and Switch that has no mention of a 4K update, no mention of 60 FPS, and no mention of multiplayer support. The game came out 13 years ago, and the Xbox port does everything they're offering, and then some for free with your 360 copy. Go buy a brand new copy of the Game of the Year edition on Amazon right now for $30, and you're good to go. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, when released on PC, had furious fans citing numerous problems getting the game to run, frequent crashes, and similar problems on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox. EA apologized and is still working to fix the issues. Destiny 2 just released a State of the Game blog saying, amongst other things, that they don't have the resources to release new ritual armor every season. But that same studio manages to create new armor sets in the shop for up to $20 a pop without fail every season. Diablo 4 unabashedly has several character skins priced at $20 each, and just released their first season that had a patch that was so poorly thought out that the developers had to have an emergency live stream to apologize, and have since begun working to revert those changes.
We don't plan on doing a patch like this ever again.
Okay, you need a more comparable RPG example of why fans are heralding Baldur's Gate 3 as a breath of fresh air? Look no further than Mass Effect Andromeda, which was widely panned.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
Or Cyberpunk 2077 that made promises about last-gen game consoles that it couldn't keep. It took CDPR almost a year to get that all sorted out. I'll make this as clear as possible to contextualize how fans are feeling. It feels like money has become more important than the core experience for fans. That's why
Yeah. This is news. I'm assuming Destin got paid for that video he just made. Of course, money's always been the core thing. No one's doing this unless you're going to itch.io and downloading Super 1 2-man indie band games. No one's doing this not for the money. And look, look, I agree with the Baldur's Gate people who are saying, or pushing back on the people who were saying, don't raise the bar. Fuck you. Look, I've been there. I know it sucks not to have the best graphics. It's, you got to compete some other way. I get it, but sorry, that's business. But if this stuff now that we've transitioned into with Destin, if you're going to be sniping at somebody, snipe at the fans. They're not doing this shit, fellas. They're not doing all the stuff that Destin was talking about, the $20 costumes and, the DLC and all this shit, because they, it doesn't work. They're doing it because y'all keep buying it. Take-Two, EA, most of their profits, or it's most, but the majority of their profits now come from what I think they're calling I don't know what it is, but it's the DLC stuff, the microtransactions. Sorry, what do you want? It's what sells. So maybe the video should be more about Destin going, you motherfucking stupid motherfuckers. Don't complain, but still buy it. because that's the problem, right? Don't. It's never going to happen, right? But I mean, the right thing to do would be to buy Cyberpunk when it came out, the first 6 months, be pissed, get your money back. But don't buy it again or don't play it again when the patch comes out and all's forgiven. But you know what? That's what I did. I don't care because I have 1,000 other things to play. But I am complicit. I am helping the industry by doing exactly. They're like a easy to, the industry's like an easy to program computer. It's like, give into their, use your money to support their shit or don't. That's pretty much the simplest language out there. So it's not the company's fault, but let's keep going. Maybe he ties this together in a little delightful bow.
Baldur's Gate 3 and even The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom are being widely celebrated.
Who gives a shit?
So what is up?
I love both of those games. I love Tears of the Kingdom. Probably going to get easily Design of the Year. Elden Ring's my favorite game of all time. Being widely celebrated doesn't put food on the table. Doesn't put Ferraris in Straszelnick's garage. You know what I'm saying?
But the excuses. A game came along that is amazing, is selling well, is being praised by developers and fans alike, and the response is, well, we can't do that. Well, sweet. If that doesn't get me hyped for Mass Effect 4, I don't know what will. Xavier's tweet was well-intentioned, and he went on to add a lot of important context. But I think it misses the perspective of the consumer. We don't know anything about...
Oh, I think he's talking about that particular development had a kind of unicorn of a development situation where they had an amazing base to build off of that was already a classic, and then they had ample time, blah, blah, blah. I think that's what... I read that tweet or that thread a while ago. I think that's what that was.
Game designer, how hard it is. We just know that Destiny is deleting hundreds of dollars worth of expansions when they feel like it, that Diablo is constantly reminding us to buy skins in their store, and most PC ports have been abysmal lately.
Then stop doing it, right? You're right in that they clearly have the resources to make skins regarding Destiny 2, but the business model suggests that those resources should go to skins that they charge for because it allows them to make more money. I don't know how this has become surprising or how this is like something. I mean, I like Destiny a great deal, but maybe this is like one of those, oh my God, I'm in Cleveland. Cleveland's my favorite, venue. It's state, but it's Cleveland, Ohio, it's a city. Cleveland's my favorite city to play in. Yay, everybody loves you. And then the next night it's, Topeka, right? Maybe he's just playing to the base, but I mean, he knows this. Everybody knows this. They do this because it works.
Remember, that tweet was made nearly a month before Baldur's Gate 3 blew up, and it was still contentious with fans speaking up about their frustrations and developers chiming in to say what felt like...
He looks like a more muscular Michael Cera. Remember Michael Cera from Arrested Development and Superbad? That's this guy. That's Destin. Yeah.
Game development is hard. You don't get it. Be quiet. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game from a large, passionate studio that refuses to add microtransactions, gave players early access.
You gotta parse this shit, man. You gotta watch the narrative. We need better media literacy taught in schools. Are there any... Let me work with you on this. Baldur's Gate 3. Are there any microtransactions, in-game purchases? No, there are none. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. Okay. So this is coming from a team. Again, this is coming from a team that has a lot of money to spend on this game, whose last games have been very successful, okay? I'm not saying that's not what you want to hear, but this is how we got into trouble with Donald Trump. I'm not saying Donald Trump said a lot of good things for people who felt they were being ignored. I'm not getting political here. I'm just saying that this is the danger of someone coming to you and telling you exactly what you want to hear. If you don't dig a little bit, it's like, it's like the Chris Rock joke when he's talking about a man is only as faithful as his options. And he's talking about all these old white guys going, I would never cheat on my wife. I would never do that. And he's like, no one's trying to fuck you, right? Because you're an old crusty dude. It's the same thing. You're only as noble as your options. So this is a nice little piece of PR propaganda to go, oh, they're noble. They get us. They get the fans. Don't be a moron. If they had to put microtransactions in because that was the business model they had signed up for, they would. And more importantly, if the game looked like a super low budget indie game, but it still had everything else in the game that Baldur's Gate 3 has, guess what? 90% of y'all wouldn't give it the time of day. It would still be the same great game. Hopefully it would win a lot of awards. Hopefully it would be a cult hit. But don't act like without all that money and that visual, oh, no, I'm all about the gameplay. Some of you are, absolutely. Most y'all aren't. Okay, so this shit here and the fact that Destin, who's in the media, is helping them spin their propaganda. Come on, Destin. I'm sure everybody believes this. But it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, just do that. It's like this, you're only as noble as your options, okay? And you could say, well, what? Destiny doesn't have to make that much money. Maybe they do. Maybe that's part of their contract. Maybe that's sort of their internal projections. I don't fucking know why they need this more than that. Some people would tell you a lot of these companies that are stockholder owned, I hate this term because it sounds so dumb, but have like a fiduciary responsibility. Just say they fucking legally have to do things to make the stockholders money. But anyway, maybe that, I don't know why. But clearly they're motivated to do that. And the idea that these guys are cut from a different cloth, come on. They're cut from a different cloth because they can afford to be. That's why I tell people don't take advice from me on a bunch of things when it comes to like work and jobs and shit, because I can afford to sit on my ass and stream. I don't fucking know if I had a full-time job or more than full-time job like most people. I don't know what my YouTube channel would be. I don't know how many videos I'd put out. Don't take my advice because I'm in a very privileged position, just like these guys.
That refuses to add microtransactions, gave players early access so they could address any problems that arose before launch, and is taking Steam charts by storm. So why should fans not use that as a gold standard of how to do it right?
They should.
And why would a AAA studio not look at it and say, hey, maybe cramming microtransactions into our game isn't a good look? When Mass Effect 4 comes out, I don't...
Because it works. Because the job is not to sell a good look. The job is not to give a fuck what Reddit and NeoGAF think. The job is to make a shit ton of fucking money. And the minute that stops making a shit ton of money and they start losing money by making all these items that no one's buying because they've woken up to the con, if it is that, depending on who you ask, then they'll stop. But hell, if I was in it for the money, which these people are, and someone said, Jaffe, you can put some microtransactions. I mean, fuck. IGN, every sixth post is you guys trying to get me to join some stupid fucking IGN club to get some random game I've never heard of and a 10% discount on some piece of shit plastic statue of Link that looks less detailed than a fucking bank of Donald Duck. Who the fuck is that? Of Donald Duck I had when I was a kid, like in terms of the visual fidelity of that statue. You guys do it too. I'm sure you would prefer not to, but that's the business you're in.
I want to see a $20 Liara skin, and I hope that its performance is tested across all platforms before release. Am I in the wrong for not wanting microtransactions in a stable video game at launch?
No.
Credit where credit's due now.
No, but don't push this narrative, Destin. No one thinks you're in the wrong. The people making the games don't think you're in the wrong. But if you want the biggest and brightest and best shit, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And this is sort of the people who are willing to fund it demand a certain return. Hell, maybe IGN should start slowly training their readers to be more embracing of the indie scene, because the indie scene is where exactly what you're talking about happens 95% of the time. But most people that I talk to online won't give it the time of day. Oh, it's ugly, it's not pretty, it's so pixely, which is fine. But something's got to give.
Have been some really good examples of AAA games like the Dead Space remake and the Resident Evil 4 remake come to mind.
Although they did add a
have been massive
microtransaction.
successes for EA and Capcom. Vampire Survivors came along and took the internet by storm last year. Do I need to bring up Elden Ring again?
Okay, well, let's be clear. Elden Ring has DLC coming, although I don't know if it's paid or not. That's, so maybe that's not helpful. I think Vampire Survivors added some stuff that you can buy later, but maybe not. Maybe that was free. But again, look what it looks like. Trust me, if a company's out there, and they probably are, remaking Vampire Survivors but with high visual fidelity, pretty sure you'll see microtransactions. Resident Evil had microtransactions. I don't think Dead Space did, but boy, those were great games.
But that tweet blew up in the development sphere, and frankly, the pushback is just ridiculous. Developers should be looking at what Baldur's Gate 3 did and trying to replicate where they can, not jumping up to defend games that are cramming in practices that fans are getting fed up with.
No, they're not.
And make no mistake about it, these decisions impact game design.
No, they are not getting fed up with it because they keep buying it. You've got to make that distinction. Wouldn't it be great? IGN, one of the biggest, if not the biggest geek website on the planet. Wouldn't it be great if their narrative was about educating their fan base and going, guys, and maybe it is. I haven't watched all their videos. And again, I like Destin a great deal. He's a very smart, good guy. But in this case, on this topic, let them know, stop goo gagaing over graphics, but that gets clicks. You guys do it too. You go where the money is, right? If you were as noble as these video game companies or this video game company, IGN, that you're claiming that, I don't know if you're claiming to be, but it seems like you're like, you get it. You feel those guys with that noble pursuit. Then you probably would be focusing more on great games that don't necessarily look staggering or don't have the marketing, but you focus on those instead as often as you can because they pay the bills. Okay, they just fucking do. So it's not it's a little hypocritical. I mean, Destin doesn't sign the checks. I know he's a guy who works there, and I do agree with him philosophically. But come on. I mean, come on. You guys do the same fucking thing. Well, we'd love to write about Severed Steel more than we have, but it just doesn't get the traffic. But, here's your 25th fucking article of the month about Redfall. Because it got the traffic for a while.
Many games are utilizing battle passes and player engagement as a metric of success. For a player, that means more grindy missions. That means more reminders to stop in the shop. It means a boring grind because keeping players engaged is a key metric.
Yep.
Many of the people who came out to talk about why Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't be the new standard have since walked back those statements, and I'm glad. Because if the industry can't take a good hard look at what's going wrong, why fans reacted,
it's not going wrong. That is the little, you have this brilliant bridge of a bridge. But it's a facade. It's made out of like paper. Like, come on, Jaffe, I'm tired. Listen, it's made out of paper because you're painting this like it's this negative thing that everyone hates, but you keep forgetting that everyone partakes. Every single fucking game that's a hit with this stuff works because people partake. You can't put this at the feet of developers. Maybe there are complaints about not wanting to raise the bar, fair. But this part about the microtransactions, come on. I tell you what, Destin, go out to 5 of these developers and say, I'll tell you what, fellas, we'll stop our subscription monthly IGN, whatever the fuck that thing is, GamePro, the thing where you pay monthly. And we'll stop doing stories on things just because the audience seems to click on them. And we're only going to focus on what the audience really wants, which is good journalism about games that are really moving the needle. And if we do that, then you guys take out your microtransactions. But until you guys do that, come on now. Come on now. Now, if you want to talk about making games in a socialist economic situation, that's a different conversation. It'd be interesting.
The way they did to Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, and then make impactful changes, we're screwed. Also, people seem to be using the fact that Larian is a big studio against them, the fact that they had a long development cycle against them. Really? Blizzard is also a huge studio with over 8,500 employees across several offices. They credited every employee at Blizzard in the release of Diablo 4. Bungie is a huge studio with over 1,552 employees across several offices. BioWare is a huge studio with over 500 employees across several offices. And Larian is also a large studio with over 400 employees across several offices. All of them have established beloved IPs with a ton of lore to pull from. All of them have a lot of money to make video games. And all of them had a long time to make anything they wanted to make. To say Baldur's Gate 3 is successful because it's aligned with Dungeons & Dragons is insanity.
That is
you
insanity.
think 800,000 Steam players are playing a game called Baldur's Gate 3 because of Dungeons & Dragons?
I haven't heard that argument, but yes, that's incredibly stupid. All you have to do is look at the box office of the great film, the fun film, Dungeons & Dragons, last couple months. Yeah, it's not the brand they think it is if they're thinking that's the reason this is successful.
No, it's clearly gone far beyond that audience. I don't know anything about Dungeons & Dragons. I didn't know this game had anything to do with Dungeons & Dragons. And you know why I'm playing it? Because I like good games with a heavy focus on storytelling and bears. But anyway, it wasn't all doom and gloom from the development side. Thank you, Juno Blees, formerly of Riot, for jumping in and echoing exactly what I'm saying here. Her quote tweet reads, "I can't disagree with this one more. Whenever a game disrupts the industry and delights players beyond expectations, it absolutely raises industry and genre standards regardless of why and how. We should look at the Larian success story and ask ourselves, how are we going to make our games better and create the next games that shake up the industry? Players
But now we're back on the games, not the microtransactions, but sure.
should and must always expect more from us, never less. Thank you. I implore AAA devs to look at these games that are being celebrated and look at your pipeline to see why the consumer is getting frustrated about the experience I outlined in this video." And
I can't say it anymore. If you aren't getting it by now, they're not dumb. They know why. But it makes money, a lot of money.
obviously try and make an improvement. Because telling me how hard it is when you're breaking profit and revenue records isn't a super compelling argument from the customer's perspective. Is Baldur's Gate 3 an outlier? Yes, but I for one wish it could become the standard.
So
isn't a
this
because telling me how hard it is when you're breaking.
Okay, so it makes a lot of money, huh? Maybe what they're doing works. Maybe gamers are buying it. Huh. Why would they change it? I don't know. Because some people on the internet? No.
Profit and revenue records isn't a super compelling argument from the customer's perspective.
You're not a super compelling argument from the customer.
Is Baldur's Gate 3 an outlier? Yes, but I for one wish it could become the standard, and being told to shut up because I don't know game design doesn't feel super constructive. But hey, I'm just some idiot on the internet who doesn't know anything about game design. I guess I'll just go buy my horse armor and call it a day. Enjoy your $20 on top of your $100 for the collector's.
Preaching to the choir, you know what you're doing, Destin. I like you a bunch, buddy, but I got to call out bullshit. You know what you're doing. Of course, I could say it's so easy to tell people what they hear and act like it's this noble call to arms. Of course, we agree. You know what? Here's what you should do, Destin. I'm serious. I mean, you have such a successful YouTube channel at this point. Why don't you leave IGN, right? And just do the Colin Moriarty thing. Because you make more money, probably, I assume. You'll have more control. And you won't have to do all the shit that basically makes this argument hypocritical. Not you as a human, but the argument. Right? The minute IGN stops, getting in the way of the content for profit, maybe then you'll have a pot to piss in. But as long as you work for IGN, come on now. And I'm not like anti-IGN or anything. I'm just saying that every internet site at that level uses that business model for the most part. So,
Edition on top of your $15 for the battle pass.
Did that just feel like Destin touched you? Hang on.
For the collector's edition on top of your $15 for the battle
in the nether regions.
pass. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.
Oh, baby, I'm letting you know
I
now.
get why you're frustrated, and it's really frustrating to see people not saying, hey, maybe we could learn a thing or two from Larian. I'm enduring Baldur's Gate 3, and I hope game development continues to grow from where it is today. I hope you do too. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And for more on all things gaming, keep it right here on IGN.
Why? Why'd you have to add that bit at the end? Oh, because it's your job to market the... I see how it works. All righty, fellas. Well, there's my reaction to it. Again, I like the guy a lot. There's nothing that he's saying at a pure, in a vacuum level, anybody worth their weight in, IQ. No, it doesn't work. But anybody with, that's not an idiot. Everybody would agree with him. But this is not in a vacuum. And so the thing I agree with him on are these people, like I said at the beginning, it's like, well, their game's too pretty, their game's too big, their game has too much scope. Okay, well, you can compete against that with creativity. Nintendo, like I said, has shown that to Sony. But short of that, when you're talking about the other stuff, hey, man, I'm playing Palaya, whatever the fuck it's called right now. They have beautiful costumes. I'd love to buy one, but I am not dropping $30 for a fucking costume in an MMO. So do that. But lo and behold, people running around with the goddamn things. What would you do if it was your company? You do the goddamn same thing. Be well, you knuckleheads. Be well. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.